Hey everyone, welcome back. We are continuing on today with our series on understanding analytics. This is going to be our second installment in the series. In our last video, we talked a little bit about reporting, what analytics are for, what the purposes of reporting are for, and how those fall into a couple of different distinct camps, essentially reporting as a measurement of progress versus research for understanding how to adjust your strategy. So today we're going to dig in a little more, particularly on that progress reporting end of things, to really get a feel for what metrics are available to you, what those metrics mean, and why this is all important. This is going to be probably a little bit of a longer video, so we're going to break it up into a couple sections as we go. Let's jump in. So, what I've pulled out here is a list of the primary metrics that I use when I'm trying to understand how we create new business. And this is pretty much going to be universal for anybody whose site's focus is about getting new business in, new work. Whether you're B2B, B2C, your funnel's going to look a lot like this. So what I like about this is that all of these things, impressions, visits, conversions, opportunities, sales, these aren't apples to apples comparisons. One person can flow through this entire pipeline and tick each of these boxes on the way down, and you'll often see this represented as that funnel where it narrows as it goes, but it's important to understand that this isn't like comparing, say, keywords to conversions, where you're not really talking about the same thing. Each of these represents a person basically progressing through a process, and that's why I find it's helpful to kind of talk about them all in the same breadth. So let's start with impressions. Impressions is the measure that we use to understand the very first point of contact that you have with people on the web. This is before they ever hit your site. Impressions has to do with search engine traffic, right? When somebody searches for something, did you show up in the results? If you did, that's an impression. The same metric gets used if you're looking at, say, pay-per-click advertising like AdWords. For our purposes here, this could be pay-per-click, this could be organic, it doesn't matter. The point is, someone was given the opportunity to click on your site. That's what an impression is. Why do we use this metric? I find this is far more important than focusing on something like keywords and keyword rankings and things when you're trying to understand the total impact of your search footprint. And the reason for this is that this is a broad, all-encompassing metric that just levels the playing field for all of the various things that you're looking at. It doesn't care which keywords you ranked for. It doesn't care whether these were big, high-value keywords or a whole cloud of little long-tail keywords. We're kind of, just by looking at this number, we're automatically evening all that out and saying if we took the total value of your really high-ranking keywords and the total value of all the long little stuff, what did that all add up to for a picture of your total footprint online? If some of your favorite keywords dropped and you're concerned about that, but other things bounced back, and overall your impressions are up, there's not really a cause for concern here. The point is that, and this is, I guess, roughly assuming that you're ranking for qualified things with your impressions. It's that total number that you're looking at. Did this go up or down? Are we making progress in our search rankings? This is kind of the one number that you can go to that levels that playing field and lets you understand that. Visits is the next thing I want to touch on. All of these things represent someone actually progressing through the stages of their engagement with you. So an impression becomes a visit. As someone goes from looking at your search rankings to clicking on your site, that's when you're going to see them hit your analytics and actually show up as a visitor on your site. This is when you can start to get data about what pages they looked at and how long they spent on site. Bounce rate is an important thing to look at when you're looking at visits. If you're getting a high bounce rate with your increase in visits, this is a strong signal that you're not getting qualified traffic, but it will in general say that if your visits are going up and your bounce rate is staying roughly the same, or your bounce rate's going up, but your visits are going up by so much more in proportion that it doesn't matter, seeing whether visits go up or down is probably the best measure of the actual impact of any kind of marketing or advertising initiative that you're attempting. If it doesn't result in more visitors on the site, this is the first point where you're saying, hey, there should be a big problem here. Yeah, visits are visits, right? It's people on the site doing stuff. And from here, you've actually got something that you can track and engage with, where you've got specific data about the individual. Where at the impression level, we don't really know anything about the visitor. We just know that generally you had the opportunity to be clicked on, and that's sort of the first vague kind of idea of there's traffic out there, and now we've got something specific. Somebody was actually on your site. Next up, we're going to talk about conversions. Conversions then is the next stage in this process, where that visitor does something on the site that you count as important. In a lot of analytic tools, CRM systems, you can define in AdWords, you can define what a conversion is for yourself. I think it's important to keep the definition of a conversion as strict as possible. You don't want to have loosely defined conversions just to make yourself feel better. I've seen people define conversions as, oh, someone spent 2 minutes or more on site, or someone visited more than 6 pages. And I mean, while that's great, that is not a conversion. A conversion needs to be something specific, something actionable, something honestly, relatively difficult to achieve. So someone makes a purchase, someone fills out a contact form, someone signs up for a mailing list. At this point, you should know exactly who you're dealing with. If you're in the kind of business where you've got salespeople, this is where you'd be picking up the phone and giving somebody a call. Conversions is where you get involved in the process, but it's still something that can be tracked within analytics. It's strictly an online kind of thing, and you'll see that built right into Google Analytics and AdWords. So here I've kind of put a little breaker across my pipeline, because this is where we step out of the realm of metrics that are online only and get into things that don't really get tracked directly by your analytics or your AdWords. Depending on what stage you're at as a business, you could be using something as simple as a very basic CRM like HighRise, or even honestly like a spreadsheet if you're really just getting started in your new business. And if you're a little more established, maybe you're using a more robust CRM. If you're a big company, maybe the leads are going into Salesforce, or if you're really focused on your marketing campaign, you're using an inbound marketing methodology and software platform like a HubSpot or a Marketo or a SharpSpring. The point is, at this point, we're not just talking about your traffic, we're talking about your interactions with real people. Opportunities are what we call out when a conversion is just a lead, and you can have unqualified leads hit your site. If you've dealt with any volume of sales before, unqualified leads are just a part of the process. And so I make a break between conversions and opportunities. You can call opportunities a lot of things. You can call them deals or quotes or whatever it is. The point is, this is the point at which you've gone through some kind of pre-qualifying process to identify that the lead that got in touch with you is someone that you actually want to work with. They're a potential sale. And that's an important division to make, because when you look at various marketing strategies and try and assign value to what's working or what's not, pay-per-click versus organic versus something you ran in a trade show, you want to be able to understand, did this generate not just traffic and things, but did this generate conversions? And then of those conversions, which tactic is generating the most qualified leads out of that process? And I think what you'll find is that you have some ways in which you acquire leads that are far more qualified than other ways, and that there are things that you may do in marketing and promoting your business and advertising that do generate a high volume of visits or a high volume of conversions, but the visits maybe have a high bounce rate, or the conversions, maybe it's a lot of leads, but then when it comes to how many of those were actual opportunities, that falls off. And you need to have transparency on that and understand which methods are working for you and how dramatically the conversions to opportunities, how dramatically that number falls off as the pipeline kind of tapers down towards the bottom, because ultimately we're going to get to sales. So sales is obviously, it's the final piece of the puzzle. Closed sale is a closed sale. That's money in your pocket. That's a new client. I don't think sales needs a lot of explaining. So what I want to focus on in just this last segment is what it means for something to go to an opportunity to sale. And a lot of times, depending on the business you're in, and I think it's a rare business where where more than 50% of your opportunities are turning into sales. In a lot of cases, that's going to be, 25%? Depending on your industry, maybe that's as low as 10%, 5%. It really depends on the business itself and how much kind of hustle is involved in closing your work. But you should know what that number is. And you should know what that number is at each stage of the process, so that you should know how many impressions it takes to get a visit, how many visits to get a conversion, how many conversions to get an opportunity, and how many opportunities it takes to get a sale. And I think what you're going to see is something that is going to taper along the lines of, tens of thousands of impressions to get thousands of visits, to get, dozens of conversions, to get a handful of opportunities to get a single closed sale. That's kind of the degree at which you're seeing this taper as it goes. And what that means is that once you have those numbers in place, when you're looking at evaluating a marketing tactic or a potential advertising spend, you can start by saying, okay, what does this cost me, and what should I expect that's going to get me in terms of actual people on my site, in terms of actual visits. And then you do the math and you say, okay, well, if this many visits means this many conversions to opportunities to sales, what's a sale worth to me? What is the value of a conversion at the end of the day? And after you factor in cost of doing business, does all of that add up to more than the cost of the marketing or advertising initiative that I'm looking at undertaking? Are there other factors that we should bring into play? Maybe it doesn't, but getting that first customer in the door means you're going to get a recurring customer, that the value of that account or the value of that customer is going to add up over time. And those are the things you want to think about, because if you don't have a clear picture of this, then I think you're just kind of flailing in the void without really anchoring yourself to a system for measuring how your business really ticks. And for these metrics, what we're really looking at is how your business ticks online. This is the backbone of everything that should inform your understanding of the decisions that you make. So really try and absorb this, understand what these things are and what it looks like for your specific business as you go through this process. And then in our next series, we're going to talk a little bit about calculating ROI and digging in a little more on how do you take this and actually then pull something really meaningful out of that for measuring your stuff. All right, thanks for watching.